love your business, love your clients. I want you to love selling your coaching. I want you to love what you're doing, because the cost of that overwhelm is eventually it becomes resentment. My name is Amanda Kaufman, if we haven't met before, but I think we all have. Say hello. Don't be a stranger. Let me know that you're tuning in, because today we are going to slay overwhelm. I was meeting with the team regarding Moms Rising and the movie, and it's going to be coming out very soon, available to be watched from the comfort of your home. So stay tuned for that. And I actually think that this is really awesome, because you don't need to feel the panic that I think so many of us feel. Do you ever feel that? Just like you don't have enough. So, like, do you ever feel like there's just more to do than you can possibly do? You know, like you've got this endless to-do list. You've got the cluttered little spots around your house. I know everybody does. You've got these standards that are just not quite happening the way that you envisioned, right? So tell me if that's true in the chat, because this training this week is going to be for you, especially if you happen to be a skilled genius expert who is expanding your impact through business, but you feel like getting that traction is not happening the way that you wanted. Okay, so we're going to unpack some of that. Awesome, Stacy. Glad that you're here. Oh my gosh. Oh, we have such great attendance today, this morning. This looks like it's a near to your heart thing that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so one of the things that really set me free, I'm going to unpack some key things. We're going to talk about creativity versus clarity. We're going to talk about your idea overload. Like when you've got so many great ideas, but you're having a really hard time like getting traction in your action and getting those things done. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this idea of capacity sequencing. So more on that, but this is literally how I get so much done compared to average busy entrepreneurial mamas. And I really want to break this down for you, because I don't want you to break down. I want you to love your business, love your clients, love your I want you to love your marketing. I want you to love selling your coaching. I want you to love what you're doing, because the cost of that overwhelm is eventually it becomes resentment. That resentment can really turn into anxiety and more overwhelm. And it just ends up being like this awful experience. And I don't want that for you. I want you to have a really good life. I want you to enjoy the fact that you are pursuing your entrepreneurship. I want you to enjoy the impact that you have with other people. I want you to bring joy. And so one of those things we're going to be talking about is this capacity sequence. And we're going to have a very frank conversation about when it's cool to multitask, when it's not cool to multitask, and how do you build what I call a sequence, right? A sequence for your success. And that's super important, because it's going to help you build your confidence. It's going to help you build speed. Some of you are so successful, but you give yourself such crap because your success isn't quite fast enough. So you're not like earning enough of the conversations. You're not having enough momentum in your marketing. You're not getting enough interest at the speed that you need it to happen for your goals, right? So I'm super excited to talk to you about how do you breed more success through speed. By the way, if you're looking for the full replay on all of this, don't forget to join our free group, Next Number 5 Clients. That's where you go. It's next5clients.com, and like type the number, don't write out the number 5. That's going to take you to our Clients Over Chaos community, where the majority of the people who are here for the live today are hanging out. And this is, of course, where we have our archive for all of our past lives, because social media these days, they delete the live after, 30 days or something. It's really hard to find. So I decided to put it in the community Clients Over Chaos. So just if you're on the gram, just make note of that. Maybe go join it and come back here to the live. Okay. So we're going to unpack this, Because here's rude truth. You don't need more inspiration. You don't need it. Okay? If you got disconnected from the internet today and you lost access to your social profiles, which I don't wish that on you, but like I'm just saying, if you could not access any more books and you were just left alone and you had a pen and a paper, could you create? Yes or yes, right? Shout a Y in the chat if you're like, yes, that's true. I know a lot right now. You've had incredible experiences in your life. You have processed a lot of those experiences to derive the meaning from those experiences. Shout a Y in the chat if that is true. You have faced challenges and overcome those challenges to be here today. You have. Right? And that could be generational challenges that you're breaking the cycle. It could be so many things. I mean, you've discovered over the years where you have strength. You've also discovered where you may feel weakness, and you just know yourself so well at this point, right? Shout a Y in the chat if that's also true. So the fact is that if someone came into your world right now, slid into your DMs and said, "Babe, can you coach me?" Dude, can you coach me? What is the answer to that question? Right? Hell yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. So you don't need more inspiration. You don't need more originality. You're already as original as they come. So here's the thing. Do you bring your best work when you feel tired? Also, I'm really proud of myself. I just put like bright red lipstick on without a mirror. Do you bring your best work when you're disappointed? Do you bring your best work when you're frustrated, anxious, right? The answer is, of course, a no. Big no. I don't do my best when I feel stressed. I don't do my best when I feel stressed. So when I was running a little teeny tiny little bit late today, an old version of Amanda would freak out. I would be begging for forgiveness. I would be beating myself up internally. I would be so upset because I've made this commitment, you see, to be here for you at 9:00. And I know how annoying it is to when somebody says like, "I'll meet you at 9:00," and it's 9:00 and that person's not there, right? Who else gets kind of annoyed by lateness, right? I do. So if I'm the one that's late, I used to just get into this whole tizzy. And let me just ask you, coach, like, would you say I'm bringing my best if I'm in a tizzy? Right? Big no. Big time no, right? You all agree with that. So here's what I did, like real time. I was breathing and clicking. And when I was on Instagram, I was just like, "Hey y'all, I'm just getting all the rest of it going." I was calm. I was explaining what was happening as I was going live, and I just breathed. So often you just need more space to breathe, right? Can I get a yes on that one? Because so often you know exactly what to do. It's just that you are so activated into a state of tizzy. I call it the tizzy, when I'm anxious and I'm frustrated and I'm annoyed and I'm feeling all these things and I'm beating myself up with a big old stick in my head. And I'm also like super obsessed with your judgment for my lateness. And like, to be honest, I think I was a whole 120 seconds late. A whole 120 seconds late, which, on one hand, that's like not actually acceptable. I hate that. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, it also just happens, right? So if you've worked with me for a while, you know that you can stop, drop, and roll. And some of you think that you've got to stop as in for weeks or multiple days in a row or hours. I mean like seconds. Just stop, breathe in, and roll with what you need to do. I can't do anything about the 120 seconds that I missed, but I absolutely can choose in this moment to be completely present with what I need to do. So shout a Y in the chat if you're just like, yes, presence, absolutely. Okay. I'm going to be calling back a lot today because I really need you to pull this in. I also thrive on your energy. So I really appreciate your engagement in the chat. It always reminds me that we're like really here together. And that helps me a lot with my presence. So we're going to break down why do most entrepreneurs, not just female entrepreneurs, but most entrepreneurs, I work with a lot of men too. Why do they spin their wheels on stuff that doesn't work instead of following a clear order of operations that compounds results? Y'all heard about compound interest, right? Shout an I in the chat if you know what compound interest is. Well, I used to think compound interest was just for money, right? I thought that that was like the what credit cards use to justify paying you more and more, to be honest. It's like, oh, or not paying you, excuse me, you paying them more and more. So compound interest, eighth wonder of the world. But it turns out that you can have compound interest in your relationships. Right? Shout a T in the chat if you found that to be true. That when you invest in a relationship over time, that relationship gets richer, it gets deeper. There's more reciprocity that happens in that richer, deeper relationship. But like the beginning of the relationship, there's not a lot. Like it's a very like fragile time for a new relationship, right? But those deep, deep, deep relationships, it's like there's this compound interest effect that takes over that eventually like you end up with these incredible ride or die type relationships that are so wonderful, you know? But it also turns out that the compound effect, it actually happens in your health too. So if you, for example, go for walks every single day versus occasionally, does that, you might not notice on the first day that you go for a walk that there's much of a difference. But if you build that habit over the next 12 months, would you get a change? Shout out an H in the chat if you see how the compound effect, it builds on itself. And the other thing is like in the fitness realm, I've found that when you really like commit to, for example, being in the gym or protecting the time to go, you tend to feel more desire for challenge over time. So you end up like saying, hey, yeah, I will lift some weights. Hey, yeah, I'll go to that class because you're already there and you're in the momentum of it, right? So the compound effect shows up everywhere. And guess what? When you're in overwhelm, what happens is a lot of people, they end up stalling out. They end up stop making deposits, whether it's a financial win or a business win, or whether it's a health win, or whether it's a relational win, right? Like think about this in your marriage, if you're married or if you're in a partnership. If you were just like a little more positively intentional every day for the next 12 months, what would happen in your relationship? I just mean like a little extra care, a little extra consideration, a little extra playfulness, but just like every day though, like the commitment wasn't every day. Would you get an ROI on that? Right? And that it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. I mean, think about your most important relationships. You could use that anywhere, right? Yeah, it's the little actions daily that compound, but here's the issue. The issue is that when you're in overwhelm, your brain is basically like, think about your brain as being broken up into three major systems. And so at the very front of your brain, like that big bulbous part at the front, that's your prefrontal cortex. That's your human brain. That's where you are processing logic and you're considering things. It's like you've got this higher order processing available to you. And then more towards the middle of your brain, we call this more like the mammal part of the brain. And this is a very emotional place. It's a very feeling place. So we're not necessarily doing the math. We're not necessarily paying attention to time. But that like mammalian brain is super, super important because like that's also where our nurture and our connection is, right? It's that middle part of the brain. Then you've got the part of the brain that's the oldest part of the brain. So I call this the lizard brain. So the lizard brain, it's very reactive. This is where our fight and our flight can get activated. And it's like, it's just very automatic, very, very, very automatic. So the front, the human brain, it's very, calculated, logical, reasoning, visioning, all of those really important things. The middle is the emotional, the connection or disconnection. And then you've got the base, which is just reaction, right? It's just reaction. So when you're in overwhelm, all right, do you think your lizard brain is being activated, your mammalian brain is being activated, or your human brain is being activated when you're in overwhelm? So H for human, M for emotional, and L for fight or flight. I see lizard emojis, right? Lizard emojis. And that's exactly right. Because what's happening when we're in an overwhelmed state is we are basically in elevated stress. Okay. And there's actually two kinds of stress. There's distress. So that's the kind you're in when you're in overwhelm. You're distressed. You have elevated levels of cortisol in your body. You are in high reaction mode. That H part of your brain, the human part of your brain, it's going offline and conserving resources until we get out of danger. That's what is actually happening when you're in distress. Now, the other kind of stress is actually not quite so harmful. It's called eustress. Okay, eustress, E-U, stress. So as my 8-year-old would say, that's a funny way of spelling it, but that's the way you do it. It's eustress. Eustress is exactly like distress in the sense that you're very activated. But the difference, the distinction is that there's more of your brain is online. Okay, you're able to dial in, you're able to focus in, you're able to be radically present, and you can access things like muscle memory. You can access things like just, those talents that you've developed. You get access to all of those when you are activated. Okay, so your body is under stress. You're very awake, but it's not distressful. We're not taking the other systems offline. We're activated and energized. And I heard this years ago and it served me so well since. The difference between fear and excitement is your breath. It's your breath. So when I'm telling you stop, drop, and roll, what I'm really saying is like, you need oxygen. Part of your brain's not fully engaged. We need the rest of the brain. But the only way we're going to get access to that in a stressful situation is if we can breathe and activate our calm. Okay, you can perform under stress for long periods of time when you can activate it more in the eustress sense of it versus the distress. So overwhelm, I hear overwhelm. When I'm a coach, I'm like, overwhelmed, distressed. They're distressed. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're concerned. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they're worried. But what I know is that the most basic part of the brain is fully firing, but we got to oxygenate and activate the rest of the mind, right? Yeah. I didn't even know we had lizard emojis. We learn something new every day, Lynn. We learn something new every day. Okay, so I want you to just take a beat and consider over the last 7 days on a scale of 1 to 10, how distressed did you feel? Right? So 10 is like, I was distressed, Amanda. I was lizard. I mean, I couldn't keep up with my basic routines. I was struggling. I wasn't feeling good. That's like 10, and a 1 would be more like, just another week. It's just another week. We're just moving along, right? Yeah. And no judgment for whatever your score happens to be, right? Like I've definitely been in 10s, I've had moments of 10 and I also had moments of like 2. Right? I'm rarely a 1. I have a level of vigilance about me, I guess you could say, right? But yeah, so let's talk about it. How does this affect your performance? Well, hugely, because when you're not processing with the full power, what can happen is because you're in reaction, you might think, I need a new idea. I need a new way out. I need a new path. I need a new idea. And then you end up spinning and cycling on your creativity. Okay? But the problem is you're not even really being all that creative when you're in that mode because the ideas you're going to come up with, do you think they're going to be your super best? Right? Shout a B in the chat if you're like, no, if I want to have my best ideas, I probably need to be relaxed. I need full access to the system. Right? That's the whole thing. So shout a B in the chat if you realize that big, beautiful brain of yours, in order to really be creative, to actually discover that path for you that's going to help you move forward requires your breath, requires calm, requires the recognition that you've already created everything you need to create. You need clarity about what matters right now. The big difference between people who get more of what they want and those that get less of what they want, one of the really biggest differences is the clarity that they have. So, I'm going to invite you actually because clarity is such an important thing. I have a whole event about it called the Planning Extravaganza. And if you go to extravaganza.thecoachesplaza.com or you send me a DM sometime today with the word extra, I'll help you register for this planning extravaganza. Now, here's what the real magic is of that extravaganza. It's dedicated time to not focus on creating a new idea, but rather clarifying what idea are you wanting to continue to pursue. You're clarifying what ideas are you going to let go? What ideas are you going to make time for? What ideas are you going to stop making time for? That's more of a clarity than a creation exercise. So much of your success is going to come from no, I'm not going to be available all the time for everyone, for everything that they think of to give me to do. No. So much of your success is going to come from doing something first to completion so that you can have the capacity to do the next thing. Because you're overwhelmed so often, it's getting triggered because you're learning from gurus who are talking to rooms of a huge number of people, and the huge number of people have very different situations. And even in my community, like, would you agree that you have a different situation than your neighbor in the Coaches Plaza community? Maybe you have a different living situation, a different financial position, a different level of expertise, a different skill set. I mean, you have enough in common to be in community with each other, don't get me wrong. But would you also say there's an individual difference between each of you? You have different strengths, you have different weaknesses, you have different life experiences. Fair? Right? So your clarity is very personal, and it's about allowing the best ideas to receive your nurture, as opposed to feeling like you have to pursue every idea just because you had one. It's very reverse. Your overwhelm is probably coming from too many ideas being pursued with the same resources at the same time. And that's why you think you can multitask. You cannot multitask. Your brain cannot multitask. I can't multitask. I've got multiple cameras happening right now, two, to be specific. And I can look at this one or I can look at this one. I can't look at both at the same time, or I can look right between. But I can't look at one of those cameras or the other camera at the exact same time with the same level of focus and intensity. Shout an F in the chat if you're hearing what I'm saying about focus. When you're multitasking, what you're actually doing is you're rapidly switching between tasks. So if I'm flipping between these two cameras, you see how my eye is changing every single time? And if I just keep doing that over and over and over again, am I going to actually focus on either camera? It's exactly like that in your brain. Exactly. And it leads to never completing something really well. And that, by the way, is one of the reasons why I offer paid programs, because when people pay, they tend to pay more attention, right? Can I get a yup in the chat if it's just it's just true. When you pay to be in a container, whether you're in the First 5 Club or you're in the Experts Network, when you pay, it's well, I want to get the return on my investment, so I'm going to pay attention, right? I do free content every single week, and I hope you find it awesome and excellent, but I have to tell you that there's only a few people who come here all the time to benefit from it, right? And those people paid me in the past, okay? To a person, they paid me in the past. There's not very many people who I encounter who, for free, are going to form a relationship with you and then stick with you through your content the whole time to get what they need. That's never been my experience. So I share that with you because when people are wanting to build something, whether they're building a business or they're building a better marriage or they're building a stronger body or whatever it is that they're building, the thing that stands between them and actually doing it is actually this idea overload. Especially I tend to work with really smart people. Smart patooties. I tend to work with people who read books. I tend to work with people who do the training. They get the certifications. They have the degrees. They value education. If that's that's you. Shout an E in the chat because I value education as well. And the thing is, though, is the hidden other side of that is that you're always coming up with a new idea, and you always recognize whatever it is that you do, there's a better version out there. Can I get a yes in that too? Right? it creates this overload because you're constantly doubting the path that you're taking right now. You're constantly doubting the path you're taking right now because you believe that there is another path that is better. Now, let me tell you something. You're right. You're right. There's probably a better path. In fact, there's probably somebody out there that's smarter than me, more eloquent than me, better trained than me that you could be listening to like right now. Probably. Like if you went to Stanford and you went and you just picked Stanford, could be Harvard, could be Yale, could be your community college, and you sit down with a professor, maybe there's a different quality of information that you're going to get, but you're here now. You're here now. And the skill that people I feel could really benefit from is this activation of presence of what am I going to do with where I am, right? And by the way, I'm not offended if you learn from somebody who's, smarter or better or whatever, or in some way in your opinion. I'm not going to be hurt by that because I want what's best for you. But at the same time, you're here, right? You're here for a reason. I don't know what that reason is. Maybe there's something about me that's really relatable. Maybe you like the experience that I've had in the past. Maybe there's a believability about how I break it down, or maybe you just like the sound of my voice. I don't know. I don't know what it is for you. But when we get into this whole, like, maybe there's something better, it's the red lipstick, right? Like I had to put the red lipstick on. I knew it. But seriously, if your brain is bifurcating across like all of these different opportunities that could be better than the one that you have, your brain, your mind is elsewhere. It's not here. It's not present. And because it's not here and it's not there. Did y'all track that one? Shout a Y in the chat if you really track that. If your brain is hypothesizing about what it would be like in that Stanford classroom or in that Yale classroom or working with that other coach or listening to somebody else right now, your brain is neither here nor there because what you're imagining about that other opportunity, that is in your imagination. That is not your reality. Right? And if you recognize that, it empowers you so much. I've never bought a bad program, a bad coaching program. I've never been in a bad coaching program because I know that I will be present in that program. And when people do things that I don't agree with or that don't work out very well, I'm learning from that too, right? So that's why I've like never bought a bad program or worked with a bad coach, is because I know how to activate by being here and being present. And that's the difference, right? Most other people, their mind is just wandering everywhere else. And the truth is they're switch tasking. They're switching their focus really fast between being here and hypothetically being there, but they're not present, right? Exactly. You learn from every experience and you get what you need from different people. I totally agree with that. So let's talk about how you really activate that next level of capacity. The answer, my friend, is in sequencing. So your success comes from sequencing. So instead of me flipping really fast between my focus, between the two cameras and like hoping that I can take it all in, but I can't because I'm not really anywhere, you'll probably notice if you've watched me that I pick a camera and I stick with it. And the reason why I pick a camera and I stick with it is because whichever one I pick, whether it's the Instagram camera or whether it's the main camera, I am there and I can be really focused and I can connect there. Right? If I don't, and by the way, the primary camera I choose, it's a clients over chaos camera. So if you're feeling a little snubbed Instagram, I'm very, very sorry. Just go to next5clients.com or grab my link in bio to come join us. But seriously, it's picking the direction of the focus. Now, when we do the planning extravaganza, when you sign up early, you're going to get an opportunity to join me next week for a goal setting workshop. And we're going to talk for I'm doing an extended session on goal setting specifically because one of the reasons you're having trouble sequencing things is you haven't decided what the priority is yet, right? So when we're in overwhelm, it's because we're treating every idea, inclination, or request as having equal importance. And when I spell that out for you, can you see how overwhelm happens? It's because we're thinking, I'm going to hedge my bets and I'm going to spread it all out. But then you don't get the benefit of the focus on anything. So we want to select, what is your goal? What is it that you want to achieve, accomplish, become, right? I call this the ABCD test. And by the way, you can use this when you're building transformational offers as a coach. The reason a lot of coaches don't sell is because they take their overwhelm and then they project it onto their people. They're like, I know it's equally important to you to be successful in business and also do well with your promotion and also do really well with family and also do really well with your personal health. So I'm just going to like help you do all of that, Kay. And the person on the receiving end of that message is going like, no, you won't. And then the coach goes, yeah, you're right. I won't, because we're all overwhelmed. We're all overwhelmed, right? So the truth is that success is going to come from choosing a direction of your service, choosing a direction of your impact, choosing a direction, because then you'll allow yourself to deepen enough into the transformation conversation that it doesn't just increase your believability, although it does. It actually enhances your credibility. It enhances your credibility because you are now able to say, hey, to get from before state to after state, here are the steps that we're going to walk through together. And because you can speak intelligently to those specific steps of that particular path, your believability goes up through the roof because it demonstrates that you actually thought about it. When we project our overwhelm onto the market and we project our overwhelm into other people, like that's a gift that some people just really don't want to receive. You know what I'm saying? They return it to sender. So sequencing is not just good for you being organized, it's also better for you for your communication of what you do. Exactly. We all have a lane. So thinking about goals, thinking about what's really, really important to you. Fair to say enrolling a few clients before the end of the year would be nice, right? Can I get a Y in the chat if that's fair to say? Like, I'd like to do that. Now, let's audit your time. So the last 7 days, how many hours did you spend connecting with people in your network? Okay. And if it's a 0, in our community, we claim it. We're like, that was a 0, right? That was a 0, or it was a 1, or it was a 0.25, whatever it was, we're honest here. Okay. Okay. So getting a new client. Okay. Here's another one. How many hours did you spend last week curating and creating the content and publishing content to make people know that you exist? Right? To make people know that you exist. So if it was 0, then that's a 0. If it was 2 hours, great. If it was 3, amazing, right? And if it's like not enough, let's get specific. And you can write it down for yourself. I'm not saying for me. I'm just saying like one way we get really overwhelmed is we stay very vague and we stay very unspecific. And I used to do that too because I thought I had to protect my feelings. But the truth is I'm much stronger than that. I can admit a 0. I can admit it. Right? Or I can admit that it was 15 minutes and what it really needed to be was 15 hours. Right? So if we just kind of like look at, well, what were the things that needed to happen? How many hours last week did you spend on creating a calendar for campaigning to enroll people in your business? Right? Creating either a campaign, which is like a real-time live thing, or a system. So that's more like an evergreen campaign. We call it evergreen in the industry because it's just like, which is so funny because evergreen implies forever. It's not forever. It just lasts a little longer. Okay. Yeah. So good. So great question. Debbie asked this really good question. And I think this is really important when we're talking about overwhelm. Again, it's the vague versus the specific. So if our specific goal is to enroll more clients, they have to know about us, right? So I call this meeting people. They got to know about us. And they've got to engage with us. And then we've got to invite them forward, right? So meeting people, talking to people, fitting with people. And by the way, if this is all foreign, weird news, then make sure you grab my book because I always like to tell people about the book because it's just a really quick, easy thing. Clients, where's my book? I don't know where my book is. Where's my book? Coaching Leads Made Easy. That's what it is. There it is. There's my book. Okay, so I just popped it in the chat and you can grab it, my link in bio if you're on Instagram. We meet people. If you're not doing tasks in the last 7 days that are specifically about visibility, about engagement and having conversations with people, which, by the way, you can have engagement and conversations with your network as you're learning how to have your visibility. If your time allocated to that was like 0 or 1, are you really realistically going to make the leap anytime soon? See, for many of you, your overwhelm is coming from simply not doing enough of the right thing to get a result. Is that too rude on a Monday? Your overwhelm is actually not coming from too much to do, but rather you're doing the same thing you've always done, and you're trying to just sort of eke in the effort to create the business. But the problem is that the business demands more. It demands more visibility, more frequency, more intensity of focus. And so for me, in the early days, it was just mastering my focus to watch the video to show me what to do. I'm telling you the truth. Like, I actually really struggled with like sitting down and watching the training video that showed me what to do. And when I finally sat my pretty butt down and I watched the video that showed me what to do and I did the things, guess what? I made progress. And then once, because I had made progress, I could watch new different videos that showed me what to do next and next and next. So this is an example of sequencing. So many of you see what people have and they go like, well, I want to have amazing clients. I want to have people spending time with me on a Monday. I want to have the likes and the shares and the accolades. I want to have these opportunities. Cool. Goals make demands. So when you have that goal, it's like, well, what does that goal demand of you? And it's like, well, it demands that I have a track record with my business. Okay. How do you get a track record of your business? There's something you have to do before you have a track record in your business. Who's following this? Shout a T in the chat if you're tracking, right? In order to have a track record with my business, I need to sell. I need to sell my offer to people often enough to build that track record. There's no way around it. I just need to do that. Okay, so backing down to like just making lots of sales. It's like, okay, what needs to happen before I can make the sale? Well, I need to have clarity about what the hell I'm selling and who I'm selling it to and why they want it and why it's a really good idea for me. Because guess what? I saw this morning and I thought it was so friggin' genius. It was, I think Jesse Eitzler was talking about it. He said on his socials, he was like, the difference between like where he used to be and then being very, very successful when it came to both business and running is he was talking to one of his salespeople for the private airline business that he had. And the salesperson says, well, you know, the customer is making all these demands. And then Jesse's response to that was like, yeah, of course they are. You're a salesperson. Your job when you're a business owner or a salesperson is to sell. And the customer's job is to resist the sale somehow. They've got to apply pressure to that. Why? Well, because the customer needs to protect their wallet. Do you need to protect your wallet? Let me know. This is not a what's in your wallet commercial, but like just shout a W if you're like, yes, that's true. I do need to defend my wallet. I have to defend my priorities. I have to defend my financial interests. I have to defend my time. I have to defend all of these things. Of course you do. So isn't it just reasonable that you should learn sales processes that respect that person has as need to steward their decisions? Shout a Y in the chat if you say like, whoa, that does make sense, right? Because the thing is like goals make demands. If you're not making the sales, maybe your prerequisite is the clarity of how to make a sale. Maybe that's part of it. So the thing is if we sequence, okay, I have my offer that I desire to sell. I think it's a good idea to figure out that offer first, personally. Like when I teach people how to build a successful 6-figure coaching business, we always start with the offer because you already have your genius. The next thing, and the thing that like coaching certifications do a like remarkably terrible job of, is showing you how to position your coaching service in a way that's appealing. It's called positioning. So positioning is just basically like, yeah, it's how do you talk about the experience, less so changing the experience itself. And when people are left to their own devices, like I talk to a lot of coaches that struggle for a long time before we work together. And the thing is like nobody told them that this was important and how to do it. So they assumed that they just didn't have the right deliverables. They couldn't trust the certification that they had because they thought, well, I need to have a different number of sessions, or I need to have a different duration, or I need to have different worksheets that are included, or a different experience that's packaged with it. And it's like, no, you are great. You are amazing. People are so silly for not buying from you. But the issue is your communication around it, not what it is. Yeah. So people say like, I need to redo my offer, but you know what they do, Debbie, is they do it in isolation. They do it by themselves. And then they're like, then they try it, right? They take forever to get it done. And then they try it one time, they get one no. And then they're like, well, I'm just going to take a break for a while. And that's your overwhelm, not your human brain. Because your human brain is like, I say no all the time. Every day I say no. I say like, no is a full-time job. I'm saying no all over the place, but that doesn't make the offer bad. That just means like, I'm not going to buy it right now because I've got a job. I've got to steward my interests. You know what I'm saying? Right? Your offer could be completely fine, but because you tried it one time, you think that it's terrible. So then you go back to the drawing board. And this is the risk of working alone. This is the risk of working in isolation. This is why it's so powerful and important to be enrolled in communities where you have the mentorship and you have the training that's questioning what you already think, right? Your overwhelm is because you keep playing back the same tape. You keep playing back the same record over and over and over again, telling yourself why you suck, telling yourself why it can't happen, telling yourself these beliefs that keep you really stuck. And the truth is that you are capable. You're more capable than I am, maybe the same capable. I don't know, but there's something about you that like is part of your whole secret sauce, but we get stopped and overwhelmed by all these other things. And again, we don't focus on it to conclude the issue and move on to the next issue. We just stay in that stuck sort of a space. So in my program LEAP, which is part of my vault that I include when you're enrolled in my Experts Network program, is this one until done. There's actually like a poster you download in that part of the program, one until done. And it's this visual reminder, even if you have ADHD or you're non-neurotypical, hello, but just like that reminder, like it's important to steward my effort towards the goal that matters. So this week, if last week you spent 1 hour on reaching out to people, what can you do to double it this week? What can you do to 10x it? What can you do to shift? Maybe it's looking in that sequence and doing the first thing first, right? The first thing first. Cool. So every idea that you have, it has potential. And if you're a smart person, you have a lot of ideas. That's just a reality. That's just how it is, right? But not every idea has the right timing. Okay? It doesn't have the right timing necessarily. So the thing is the right move at the wrong moment is still going to slow you down. So if you're like, yeah, I need to learn how to sell, but I also need to learn how to do something in Canva, which by the way, increasingly, you do not need to know how to use Canva because you can just tell it what to do verbally and it will do the thing, right? It's comfortable to go to the thing you feel like is a lower bar that you can actually succeed at. But the thing that's actually going to help you move is when you have a very clear idea of the order of the operations, the prerequisite things, and that you're stewarding your energy. Taking the time to learn and master Canva does not help you be a better coach. It just doesn't. It's not necessary. And what's really crazy? It's not necessary for the first 6 figures, and it's not necessary for the next 6 figures. Let me tell you why. When you start actually making real money with your business because you're clear about how to sell it, you can pay for either the software that is smart enough to do this or pay for the assistant to make Canva their problem. There's no universe where a coach needs to worry about Canva because no one's going to see your attempts at Canva and go, wow, I want to hire you. They're gonna choose you, Pikachu, because you demonstrate an understanding of their goal, what they want to do, and where they're headed. And you just having a selfie is honestly going to serve you a lot better because people are going to want to connect with people, right? Can I get a Y in the chat if you're like, maybe I have things on my learning path and my learning journey that I don't need to learn because I'm not a graphic designer. I'm building a coaching business. Okay. So your homework, should you choose to accept it, your growth work, as one of my clients likes to say, your growth work is to take your current list of priorities, your ideas, your projects, and you're just going to number them in terms of what should happen first, second, and third. And you're going to just cross out anything that's not serving your biggest goals, right? And just watch how quickly your focus dials in and your results start to multiply because you are getting the benefit of compound interest on what you're doing. Stop rebooting, stop starting over, stop serving all these different masters all at once, and stay really focused on service, stay really focused on helping other people. Now, if this episode gave you some clarity, make sure you share it with a friend. You can invite your friends to nextnumber5clients.com. They'll get the full replay as well as all of our past trainings that we do on a Monday. I'm going to be back next week, and we are going to be talking about 3 simple systems that are going to help you buy back 10 hours a week for your business. I'm super excited to share those systems with you. So you just come join me at 9 a.m. Central next week. And again, when you're in Clients Over Chaos, you can go to the events tab and you'll be able to add it to your calendar. We always announce it towards the end of the week so you can have it added. If you want to put a standing reminder that I'm going to be here 9 a.m. Central Mondays, I was like, lost my words for a second, then that's what we're going to do. And it's going to be great. And I'm going to love it. And you're going to love it. And we're all going to love it. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to sign up for the planning extravaganza, which is New Year's Eve. If you want to have the best year you've ever had, let's plan it out together. Just join us at extravaganza.thecoachesplaza.com or DM me the word extra at any time. And if what I've been talking about the last little bit really resonates with you, make sure you DM me the word expert. If you're tired of spinning your tires, if you are not getting paid enough as a coach to match the skills that you have, we need to talk. So shoot me a message at expert. Shoot me a message with the word expert. Thank you. And I will help you with what is your next big move that is going to help you to activate that sequence for you and your business. Thank you for being here, and we will see you very soon.